Hey art nerds! Today I want to talk to you guys about Marie's Chinese Watercolor. A while back we unboxed and swatched the Marie's Premium Chinese Watercolor. So today I wanted to unbox and swatch this horse package set and compare them against the professional line. This is the 18 color set. And it's $16.79 on Amazon. I'll pop a link down in the description below. Marie's is a Chinese watercolor brand made by Molly, a famous Chinese paint company. Chinese watercolor differs quite a bit from Western watercolor. Generally, it uses a different binder, which is gelatin based. It's intended not to rewet, rework, or lift. The colors are intentionally more opaque, and colors are designed to be used on either side of the paper. So this is the 18-piece set. It has 12 milliliter tubes, and the colors do have a name in Chinese and a number. I'll go over their English names in a bit. So this is the premium set I reviewed a while back. It has nicer packaging. The tubes look a little bit nicer. I'll make sure to link that unbox and swatch down in the description below. But let's go ahead and get into this 18-piece set. So Marie's is a popular and common choice for Chinese watercolors. They require little prep work as they're already in tubes and ready to mix. I will not be reviewing these today on the basis of Chinese watercolor, but to see if they're a useful and acceptable alternative to Western style watercolors. I reviewed a few Gensai style paints on this channel, so I may do some comparison with those. And I'm going to swatch these on rice paper as well as on cotton rag paper. So these paints come in metal tubes that have a little metal cap that has to be punctured before first use. Design-wise, the premium tubes are similar to Western style watercolors and to the PWC and HWC watercolors. The non-professional, for lack of a better term right now, tube is 12 milliliter rather than 9 milliliter and is written entirely in Chinese. Both have the same number system, so I'm going to provide the English names. Some of these English names came from Blue Heron Arts, and I'll have a link down in the description below. So the colors in this set are 104 Titanium White, an opaque mineral color, 218 Gamboge, 242 Duckling Yellow, 399 Vermilion, a semi-opaque mineral color, 398 Cinnabar, an opaque mineral color, 400 Rouge, a plant-based color, 302 Scarlet, a plant-based color, 390 Carmine, 684 Umber, a semi-transparent mineral color, 699 Burnt Tea, a semi-transparent mineral color, 439 Purple, a transparent plant color, 593 Green Label 3, or Green Light, an opaque mineral color. It's the lightest of the three green tones, and it's not recommended as a standalone color on the front of the paper as it tends to look chalky. 511 Jadeite Green. This is a new version of the same mineral green. It's greener than past iterations. 493 Blue Label 3. 455 Lake Blue. It's an opaque mineral color, and it's the medium hue between Blue Label 3 and Blue Label 1. 451 Dark Green. It's a phthalocyanine blue, and it's a transparent plant color. 495 Indigo, and 793 Black. And if you guys check the description below, you'll see which colors are in the premium 12-piece set as well. And my pigment information came from Blue Heron Arts. I'll link that as well. They're a great source for these watercolors, and they sell a lot of nice Chinese watercolor supplies, so I highly recommend them. They also have a lot of great tutorials here on YouTube if you're interested in learning about Chinese watercolor. So a little bit of information about the pigment grade used in Chinese watercolor because it's very different from Western style watercolor. They're generally made from natural plant-based dyes and larger mineral pigments than those used in Western watercolor. It's not recommended that one use Chinese watercolor on regular watercolor paper as it's more opaque than Western watercolor. Chinese watercolor offers superior color fastness, which ensures color vibrancy from years to come. So now we're going to do our swatch test on rice paper. This is really cheap practice calligraphy paper. I've been trying to learn a little bit of Chinese watercolor on the side, so this is what I've been using to practice, but it's not particularly nice Chinese watercolor paper by any stretch of the imagination. I applied some Copic just so we could do some opacity testing, And I know I'm using way too much water for rice paper. Actually, I should have swatched these very differently, but this was my laziness to blame here because I didn't want to grab a separate mixing palette. I also noticed that more than half of the colors separated out a lot, and it made a big mess. It dripped everywhere. It was sticky everywhere. I even have this gross puddle that I'll show you guys in a minute of all of the binder that came out. And the binder used in Chinese watercolors is typically a gelatin, so like an animal-based binder. Sakura makes Chinese watercolors that use a synthetic gelatin binder that's supposed to never dry out. I haven't tried that yet, so I can't comment on it, but I do know my premium tubes, some of them definitely did have dry out problems due to all the binder oozing out during the unboxing swatch, and then the paints inside drying out quite a bit. So when the colors separated and dripped all over the place, I handled most of that off screen since it creates a lot of mess and I didn't want it dripping onto our swatches. And here is our very attractive side puddle of gelatin ooze. Okay, so here are all 18 colors swatched on rice paper. I feel like I did a very ineffective job swatching these on rice paper. My intention wasn't to see, oh, how well do these work on rice paper, since these are very, very popular and generally recommended for use with Chinese watercolor. So now I'm going to try swatching these on Arches watercolor paper. So this is a 140-pound cotton rag watercolor paper with internal sizing, you know, exactly what they recommend we don't use. And I have the same system in place, but fortunately we've already gotten rid of a lot of the excess or separated out gelatin, and our tubes are already open, so this should move a lot faster. So these are definitely more opaque than Western watercolors. We knew that going into this. They're not designed to be used like Western watercolors, and just by doing this, I'm kind of ignoring popular recommendation and just doing what I want to do. So I'm definitely at my own risk and in dangerous art supply territory here. But many of the colors are similar to the Holbein Iridori line, as well as common colors in Gensai style watercolor. And since they share a similar history, that's really not surprising. So this is actually something I've been playing around with a lot more and something I've been looking for more. It's something that when I started buying PWC watercolors, it's a trait I was looking for. And when I buy Holbein watercolors, I've been working towards buying more opaque watercolors. Since I already own a bunch of transparent watercolors, I'm looking for watercolors that are well made, affordable, and can add something new to my palette. So these colors are definitely a little bit chalky. There's not a whole lot of granulation. The only color that really seems to have a whole lot is $6.99. $4.39 might have some, and $6.84 has a bit too. And that one's interesting because that's the only one in this set that came in a plastic tube. And I have to wonder if it's because in the past there's been like a chemical reaction with the metal of the tubes. But I actually don't know. I can't tell you guys. So here's all of our Marie's Horse Chinese watercolors swatched out on Arches watercolor paper. I want to compare these and do a comparative swatch with the premium watercolors next. So my plan with these in general is I wanted to do a field test illustration using Chinese watercolors in a more Western style to see if with some accommodations that's something that's feasible or even worth considering for an artist who maybe has more experience with watercolor and with Western style watercolor. So that's something I'm still in the works on, still thinking about, but I hope you guys will stick around, maybe consider subscribing and keep an eye out for that. If you're looking for more watercolor reviews, I've got a bunch of them here on this channel. I'm a watercolor comic artist, so I've painted hundreds of watercolor comic pages, and I definitely have my preferences. So if you're a watercolor illustrator, this could be a great place for you. So here are the premium watercolors. I think the tubes look quite a bit like the Holbein Iridori line, a little bit like the PWC line. I really happen to like how just kind of clean the colors are for these. We just have the color and then the brand name, and there's not a lot of extra going on these tubes. So it's very easy to grab the color that you want at a quick glance. So compared to the horse line, or comparing this premium line to the horse line, the economy line, as I've seen them called on some sites on the internet, some of the colors are cleaner in the professional line. Cinnabar, Rouge, Indigo, all three green labels, and well, I say that, but I got two green label number 2, I believe, in my premium line. I think that was a goof. I got them from EasyU on Amazon. I'm not really sure how I got the same 2 colors. Let me know if that's common in Chinese watercolors or if somebody goofed up in the factory. Anyway, all 3 green labels and both blue labels. The colors are a bit less opaque in the professional line. For the most part, neither of them have a lot of sedimentation, save for burnt umber in the economy line. The professional line is a lot more like the Iridori brand from Holbein than the economy line. So I actually really like the colors in the premium line. They're a little more subtle, they're not as chalky. There's a nice nuance to the color that I don't think is really there in the economy line. The indigo is much, much darker and richer than the indigo in the economy line. The green labels are green colors. They're very similar, all 2 in the premium are very similar to one another, but they're like a nice soft sage or jade green compared to the two greens in the economy line. 593 is a very chalky green, and then 511 is really more of like an emerald green. And it's not a bad color, but it's just not as nice as the greens in the premium line. I particularly like 491 and 493 in the premium line. 491 is this beautiful, beautiful blue that would work really, really well for skies. And it seems when you've watered it down quite a bit, you get a lot of nice variation in tone. I can see what they mean with warning that these paintings or these paints on the front side of a painting can tend to look kind of chalky. In a different swatch test that I'm not showing here, I did a couple layers just to kind of help me develop a working palette and help me get a feel for the premium watercolors, and you start getting that kind of chalky buildup that you see with cheaper Western style watercolors, where you can tell they've used optical brighteners to make the colors pop a bit more. Now, that's intentional with Chinese watercolors. It's part of their design, so I'm not going to say it's a flaw. They're not designed to be mixed a whole lot. Like you're supposed to mix 2, maybe 3 colors together, but you're not supposed to mix like 6 colors together, and you're also generally not mixing up huge batches of color. So it's important to kind of consider these very differently than I would Western style watercolor and judge them on a different standard. The premium watercolors are available in sets of 12 and 18, but I can't find any open stock. I have the 12 set, and the 18 set has some beautiful colors that would be really useful, but I can't find anywhere where they're selling those individually. And I've checked Blue Heron Arts, and I've also checked Chinese brush painting. AsianBrushPainter.com. I'll link both of those down in the description if you're looking to purchase these. I think they have a better price. Blue Heron Arts does have the economy version open stock. You can buy individual colors from there, and perhaps in the future they'll also start selling the premium set open stock as well. I think that would be really great because as you use up colors, then you can replace them. I always like when I see brands offer open stock watercolors. So now that these have had a chance to dry fully, I'm going to do the lift test. So we're using a slightly stiffer synthetic quill. We're applying clean water, and then we're trying to lift it up. Chinese watercolors are really supposed to be lift resistant, reworkable resistant, because they're intended. So with Chinese watercolor, you stretch your watercolor paper after you finish painting. So that means you apply water and sometimes a gelatin glue to stretch it onto another more sturdy surface. So Chinese inks, Chinese watercolors need to be more water resistant. They need to not reactivate. Now, reactivation would definitely be a thing with Western watercolors if you dared put that much water on them. But Chinese watercolors are pretty sturdy, and they could definitely be useful for, say, underglazing techniques or techniques where you're going to be applying a lot of color and a lot of water on top of them. You just really need to have kind of discernment and a lot of experience to figure out how to work these into your watercolor routine. I found that neither the economy nor the premium line were as prone to lifting as Western watercolors, but the economy line is slightly more prone, and both are very staining. And I'm going to have this transcript down in the description below if you want to read through it. I'm also going to have more pigment information for you guys, so I highly recommend you check the description for more information. So, the verdict on these Marie's Economy Chinese watercolors. I'm glad I compared them to the premium watercolors because I think the premium watercolors are nicer and worth the price difference. This also helped me decide which set I wanted to use during the field test. I'm going to go with the premium set, and that's one of the reasons I started looking at or looking for open stock Marie's premium Chinese watercolors. I look forward to doing the exact opposite of what every site recommends and attempting a Western style watercolor with these paints because YOLO. Also because I happen to just really love the colors and I want to find a way to work them into my regular painting rotation. Whether that means I start adding more Chinese painting techniques to my regular rota of techniques, or whether I develop like a whole sub-style, or if I use them the way I use Origami and Gensai style paints. It's really going to be an exciting time because these are out of my wheelhouse. They're a little bit different for me, and I always love learning how to use new art supplies and new watercolor supplies. So that about wraps it up for the Marie's Economy Chinese watercolors. I think they are excellent if you're practicing Chinese watercolor and you don't want to necessarily quote-unquote waste your good paints while you're still learning. As I'm learning, I'm going to be using the economy paints because they're more economical, they're cheaper, and I can save the premium paints for nicer pieces once I'm more confident in Chinese watercolor techniques or once I'm ready to move on to something a little bit more elaborate. I hope you guys found this review helpful, useful, and inspiring. I know other artists have reviewed these watercolors, so as always, I recommend you check out what they have to say too, because I'm sure our opinions will differ, and I'm sure they're able to bring something to the table that I've missed, just as I feel I probably can bring something to the table that they may have missed. So, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're looking for watercolor tutorials and you're new to watercolor, I have a quick and easy watercolor playlist that I'll link in the cards. If you're a little bit more experienced and you're looking for some fun watercolor projects, I have a watercolor basics series that you guys might enjoy. And I also talk a lot about painting watercolor comics, what goes into watercolor comics, and how you can paint watercolor comics in the watercolor basics series and over at natosoup.blogspot.com. If you like what I do and you want to continue to help me create it, you can join me over on Patreon at patreon.com/natosoup. And if you'd like to check out my art, you can check me out on Instagram at instagram.com/natosoup and get sneak peeks for upcoming videos. Have a great day, guys. Bye!